Here we are. Hello, welcome to another GoDaddy Pro EMEA meetup. Yes, hello everyone. Today is 16th of May and we have such amazing guests and a great topic. So let me first start with the introduction of our guests. Hello, Davinder. How are you today?
I'm good. Hello to you and everyone else.
It's nice. I mean, Nathan and Vito and Davinder, we actually met a couple of hours earlier during the WP Builds right session, right? But still, even though Vito and Nathan are also famous people and still waiting for Mary Job to join us, let's say hello to Nathan and Vito.
You go first, Vito.
How you doing? Good to see everyone. It's good to be here. And yeah, I'm Vito, the co-founder and CEO of Adarim, where we help agencies collaborate with their clients.
Awesome.
And I'm Nathan, and I have a podcast about WordPress, and I am sponsored at the minute by GoDaddy Pro, which is great.
Awesome. But that's not the reason why actually you are here today. The reason why you are here today is because there has been a number of events that have taken place already in the WordPress space. I mean, and also Vito is holding the agency summit. You're holding the page builder summit. Davinder is actually preparing the WordPress space and explaining to WordPress space what you guys are trying to achieve in your companies. So we have a synergy here of creating good solid base for business. So today the main topic of our meetup is how to run WordPress business in 2022. Since 2019, we've gone through a number of hurdles, turmoils, typhoons of different type of economical, health, social, even more different at even more different levels. But now I think we could say that the economy could take a turn in stabilizing. So if we talk about stabilizing, and if we talk about business tips, I will ask each of you. Maybe let's start first with Davinder, and then Nathan, and then Vito, to tell me what would be your most important business tip for anyone who is in WordPress business as a freelancer, side hustler, or having an agency or thinking of opening an agency in 2022. What do you think would be the biggest tip you can give from your end? Thank you.
Simple, just get into the community. Even if you don't have anything to sell, just participate, help others to learn yourself. You will get ideas, and while doing so, you will build authority and visibility around your name and brand if you have one at that stage of career. And don't follow the traditional path of you build something, launch, offer a lifetime deal, and then go dead without any much possibility of growth and visibility. Instead, I think you should follow the difficult path, which is more productive, like validate your idea, focus on the feedback. And you can only get the feedback if you are in the community and you know where to find that feedback. Increase your prices, and then you can probably consistently grow and maybe expand further. So everything, all this life cycle, that can only happen if you're already part of the community and you know which are the touch points that you can reach out to get the feedback and put out your product with more eyeballs that will probably be your customer.
Okay, shall I go? So my thoughts on this have distilled over many years. I remember being told by a teacher when I was at school to do what I was good at. And I remember thinking, well, that's obvious. But as life has gone on, it's turned out to be the truth. In other words, whatever switches you on, whatever pushes your button, whatever thing you are distinctly good at compared to the people around you, follow that, because your chances of succeeding at something that you are, for reasons that only nature can explain, that you are better than the majority at, go for that. So in my case, I tried to do coding. I tried to turn my hand to PHP and JavaScript, and I could do that ish a bit, but it wasn't where my strength really lay. So whether you're a coder or like me, you're a talker or you're a designer or you could crunch numbers. I know it's banal, but that would be my advice: is to figure out it may take years. Figure out what you're actually good at, where your passions lie. And I predict that success will come because you will enjoy what you're doing. And so you'll strive to be the best at it. And you'll probably be better than the sort of standard distribution curve.
I love that. I agree with both of you guys. I'm gonna try and take like a more um, s- let's call it like I'm gonna share a tactic that people can actually that on top of being part of the community, and of course you gotta love what you do, or else there's no reason to wake up in the morning. It's not go. It doesn't go without saying. A lot of people don't enjoy what they're doing, and that's the wrong way to live life, in my opinion. But one thing that really made a transformative thing in my business, whether it's as a freelancer or growing from a freelancer to an agency and then to a product, is this concept of audience message channel system. And just those four components, once you clarify them for you, for your own business, then you're going to see magical things unlock. Because if you know who your audience is, and both of you guys have figured it out with your, Nathan, with your podcast, imagine you would do a podcast about everything.
Yeah.
It's like doing a podcast about nothing, right? So you niched down on that thing, and an audience is kind of the same thing as niching down, trying to figure out who you're trying to address, and then based on that, you want to refine your message, just because you know what they need. These types of people. So Nathan's podcast, and we did this run with Bertha, if you remember a little bit over there, and tried to figure out what is your main CTA, and just like the unique selling proposition that you're trying to offer. And what I like about your podcast the most is that it really is something that is very friendly, right? It's not too technical, and it's not too this. It's very kind of like easy and entertaining as
Mhm.
well. So, like, I think you like about this self deprivation, I think is what you call it.
Yeah, self-deprecation. Yeah,
Deprecation.
yeah.
So this kind of stuff, it makes it human, and it resonates, I think, with a lot of the people that are listening. This type of vibe. So that's the message, and then finally you have the channel. So Devinder did a great thing on his mailing, on his newsletter, with the WP Weekly. You created email, or you leveraged email as a channel for distribution for your message, for your niche, for your message. So you have the audience nailed down, you have your message nailed in, zoned in. This is the weekly roundup on WordPress, and then you use email as your distribution channel specifically for you, the vendor, right? And then finally the system, which combines the whole thing together and allows you to bring this to the right people with the right message through the right platform in the right time. So audience message channel system is the key to unlocking any business, really.
Can I add to that a little bit as well? Having heard what Vito said, I think one of the things that I have learned as well is not to be always chasing the next big thing. It kind of fits in with what I was saying earlier about learn what you're good at. I think the internet is just a hotbed of ideas. There's people always trying to pitch you with this is the next way to make $1 million tomorrow, and within a week that'll have pivoted and it'll be something else. And the bare bones of the internet is pretty simple. You need to push a website out to a customer and they need to get a return on that. And all of these bells and whistles, that's great, but it don't focus too much of your energy trying to learn every brand new thing.
Right.
Probably master the basics first, because honestly, the next boss is coming. If you get on this boss, there's another one next week, and the week after that, and the week after that.
And the classic example of what Nathan just said, like I use MailerLite for my email marketing, and I get a lot of people that come to me, oh, top marketers don't use MailerLite. You should be using something else, XYZ. So don't follow marketers or top people in your space do. Just do and use things that work for you.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow. I mean, I'm really impressed how, even though we didn't share our answers between us, right? but I'm very happy how the answers actually came from an idea then to what you like to do, and then Vito actually made it more complicated and introduced the real work, right? So yes, that. I think these tips are very good. Yeah, that's true, Vito. You complicated. It was so simple when Davinder and Nathan were
Right?
talking. It was nothing complicated. You don't
Well,
have to learn anything.
maybe, yeah, maybe.
It's just look down in yourself, see what's happening, see what you like. But then you showed up, and we came to learning, right? So the next thing, what actually related to WP Agency Summit, I don't know if you guys managed to watch the sessions at WP Agency Summit, at least some. I loved some, and one of the guys that really impressed me was Trent Dyersmith,
Yeah.
who was a lecturer at the summit, and he offered his productivity hacks. So when you actually decided to introduce productivity, and how do you measure? I'm sure you didn't start from the beginning because you needed to understand what you're doing, right? But when you nailed what you're doing, and when you understood how long it takes and what your goals are, how productivity fits in your business model at the moment, and when you think it's the time to actually introduce it. Vito, would you like to go first?
Yes. So when it comes to how long it takes, that's the key. Because most people don't know how long things take. Because if we're following Nathan's advice and we're doing what we love, it all seems super fast, right? It's just like the time passes and you don't realize that it's 12 a.m. and you're sitting in front of a computer still doing that one feature, right? So figure out how long things take. That's the key part of it. Now, one thing that became really apparent for us at Adarim, we actually explored more than 20,000 agency-driven projects recently to try and pinpoint exactly that, the efficiency of project delivery and how does that really works. So I'm happy to share the horrifying results with you guys. That basically, I think that everyone that is joining us, as well as you guys, you would agree that a basic website that you're gonna build on your own, just you and the browser, should take you about 3 to 5 days, right? A basic business website, 10 page, when you do it on your own. But as soon as a client gets into the picture, that 3 to 5 day task becomes a 4 to 6 weeks project on average. And that is an increase of 420% just because someone joined the collaboration aspect of it. So when it comes to optimizing services, and really is the interesting point here is that um, we're service businesses and we're selling our time. Whether a lot of people say you got to sell value and all of those kind of things, but at the end of the day, you're selling your time and you have a certain amount of time, and if you ran out of time, you need to hire another person and sell their time, right? So services is always time, it's always entangled with the time that you can deliver. And so this, we found, is the easiest path to creating profitability. If you can reduce the time of delivering the project, not the time that it takes you to build it, because that was already hyper systemized by page builders and all of those kind of things, but the time to deliver it, that is going to free up to 420% profits out of every project that you do.
I think that's a lot. Expect that, okay? Because I thought when you bring a client, it's easier because he has the information and it can give it to you, right? But it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, 3 to 5 days to 4 to 6 weeks. It's crazy. And
That's
we
a
all
lot. So
just
how do you
accept it.
measure productivity for yourself? I mean, if it should be 4 to 5 days and then it ends up to be almost a month. So when do you know you're
Yeah.
productive? When do you know that everything is like going in the right direction?
Right. So first of all, you want to put those milestones in there so that you can check yourself. And if there is no milestones throughout the project process, then it's very hard to see if you're on the right track. But if you have those stages set up, then you can just check if there's a week has passed and where are we? 2 weeks have passed and where are we now? And again, remembering that the time should be 3 to 5 days, it makes it pretty cool to set very short intervals and to try and figure out how you can get them met in time. And that also means communicating, because most of the time that is being wasted is actually not your time. It's waiting for the client to do all kinds of stuff. So actually taking them along for the ride. And a lot of times as agencies, we tend to let the client, because of this bad experience, we kind of like, let's try and not involve the client as, or involve them as little as possible. But that actually creates the opposite effect, because they're not part of the experience. They don't have what I like to call the natural learning curve of going through the project. So if you can involve them more, but in very short time intervals, then you're going to see the time increases. Now, every time that you involve them, there is a touch point, and that should be a stage that has a milestone that is set in time. 3 days from now, 7 days from now, 14 days from now, and so on. And that's how you can really check yourself. And I can share a personal productivity hack that I have here on my tail, which is this guy. This tracks what I'm doing at any given moment while I'm here at the desk. So there's like, I'm reading emails, I'm working on myself, I'm doing this. So now this was on this. Webinars and presentations and stuff like that. I have meetings, which was an hour ago. I do bug fixes on some stuff. I have like conversations. I take a break. So every time that I just put this on the right thing, it puts it in my calendar what I actually did, and then I can review my time in real time and see. And for me, it's not about trying to do it differently. It's about how can I buy back the most amount of time that I spent. So if I'm spending 4 hours a day doing something or doing bug fixes, I'm going to hire a support agent and free up 4 hours of my days. And so that's really, I'm just trying to get this to me not needing to do anything, really. That's the end goal. Just hire people to do the work.
That's amazing. First, you frighten them with the amount of work they need to do, then with the length of time in front of them, and then you just take off. That's amazing. I love your approach. In the meantime, Cami also agrees to what you said. Thank you, Cami. I think that it's this client work. Maybe technology is kind of hard to learn, but then working with clients, I think it requires much more energy and knowledge and luck, I would say. So, Nathan, when it comes to you, you have different productivity hacks, right? I mean,
Oh, like I was just watching Vito there, thinking that'll never work for me. But if it works for Vito, that's brilliant. You know, it's just curious how different we are in that sense. You know, he's got this little dice that he can drop, and it does all of that. Honestly, I would throw the dice out the window within a minute of having it. Be like, no, I don't want the dice. The dice is not going to rule me. So I'm much more kind of, I basically, my productivity tip is the telephone. It is simply, I love to talk to people and I love to get on the phone with people. And if a problem arises, get in front of it, speak to the people involved. Don't be shy, don't be ashamed, talk to them. And the Google Analytics data and the data that Vito is gathering, he's probably really curious about that, and he's able to inspect it and make terrific judgments from it. I know for myself that all of that data would just sort of sit in a spreadsheet somewhere, and I wouldn't really make a lot of use of it. And then I'd probably start to feel a bit guilty about the fact that I, wasn't being as productive as possible. So number one is the phone. Number two is forgiveness. Allow yourself to be a bit rubbish from time to time. In other words, if you detect that you are being less productive than you might otherwise be, maybe there's a bit of you which is actually calling out for change. Okay, I've been staring at the screen for 4 hours. I've achieved nothing. At that point, it's like, go and do something else, because clearly the screen is not working for you. So my productivity is almost Stone Age, really. It's kind of the Neanderthal approach to productivity, but it is forgive yourself, speak to people in the real world. And I'm amazed that, that Vito has all that, and it's brilliant. But know who you are. It gets a bit back to what we said in the first one. And if that approach doesn't work, and it will work for some and it won't work for others. I was always a freelance. It was always me I would always make sure that my inbox was full, so that there was always a steady, there was always a steady flow of clients coming in. And I knew for a fact that if this client never got back to me, well, I've got this other one who needs me to do something. So I'd just say, that's fine. You come back to me next week and I'll deal with that then. For now, I'm just going to pivot. I'll do this. That's fine with you. Yeah, it's all good. Okay, we're off. And it would just work. So it was much more sort of fluid, but it doesn't, my system really, I don't think allows for growth. It doesn't allow for me to employ people particularly. It doesn't allow for me to sort of stand above and inspect people. I'm doing everything, and the everything was never a great deal. It was always manageable by one human being, me, and it worked. And I was really happy with the way it all worked out. So yeah, really curious. It's totally different to Vito's, but caveat emptor, it won't allow you to get very big, but it may allow you to, forgive yourself and take time when you need it to do the things that you need to do.
This is amazing. I'm very happy that actually we have three different, and actually we were supposed to have four different examples of different WordPress businesses where you guys have totally different setups. By the way, Vito, I really love the cube. What's the cube about? Is that something like a Google stuff or
It's called Timular.
Timular? Okay, I'll see you in Porto.
I would
so
drop that in a jug of water the day I got it.
Yeah, but you can. But can you imagine Vito talking on the phone to his 3,000 clients?
Yeah, exactly.
You
So
would go
different.
mad. Seriously, I mean, that
I would
wouldn't
go
work.
mad.
Yeah, I mean, nobody says nothing similar would happen, but it's just like I mean. But now we have Davinder as well. So Davinder, you have a totally different approach, right? So what's your approach when it comes
Well,
to activity?
if I had Vito's cube, it would have been stolen in first day by my daughter, and she would have said, "These icons are really bad. Firstly, why the heart is red? It should be pink. So let me just do it, fix it." So that won't work here. So my approach is, I work as a solo person, and I do hire subcontractors as and when I need. I relate more towards what Nathan does because he also works in a similar kind of a structure in this phase of my professional career, where I don't do many websites. I'm more into consulting, coaching, and building content. My measuring factor of productivity hangs around just around one thing: am I enjoying what I'm doing? As long as that part is valid, other things like money always fall in place. And mind you, this enjoying the work may sound too good to be true, but it took me almost 10 years to get into this phase. Like, I did the usual rat race of finding clients, running after one. Like Nathan said, like, at least build a pipeline so that if one says no, there's someone who will nod ahead. Yes, I've got some money for you, right? So, but then after years of doing this, suddenly that light bulb moment, I've done a lot now. It's time to expand further. So everyone will get that light bulb moment, but the time will vary. You still have to slog, you still have to work hard in the beginning, but once you get that easy phase, you can be more creative. And mind you, when you are more creative and do things that you actually enjoy, money will be there, and it will be in more quantity as compared to doing the client work. I can tell you, giving my example. So I will just say, just be easy on yourself. Don't worry about the dice and cubes.
We need Bobby McFerrin to walk in at this point and sing "Don't Worry, Be Happy."
Minimum, unless a cube breaker comes in, and starts looking for Vito.
Well, Vito's child is very young. Let 2 or 3 years pass, and then we'll see what
If
happens to
she
his cube.
knows, it wouldn't be here. So she's
Can I ask
keep
Vito?
it away from her whole show.
Can I ask Vito? Do you ever? I know for a fact that if I had your cube and I didn't plunge it into a jug of water, I suspect that I would cheat. I think there'd be a bit of me which would say, "Oh, I didn't really do that much email, so I'll just tip it over to the whatever I wanted to do and sort of skew it a little bit." I think I have to admit
So
that would happen.
I can tell you how, like, the way that I'm using this is that at first I was kind of using it religiously, right? And it is crazy. It's crazy hard to just keep track of it, and sometimes you forget and so on. So now I do it as an exercise because whenever that I feel that my time is being taken from me, I need to figure out, and this is what you said, Maya. That's the first thing you said. How long something takes. So whenever I feel that that my time was taken from me, then I say, all right, today is a cube day, and then I track the
Hmm.
entire day, and then I just inspect what happens on this thing, because then I don't get bogged down with too much data. It's very actionable. It's something that I can take action today. And then I say, all right, I had too many. I was supposed to have 3 meetings, but I ended up talking to the team for 4 hours because there was a fire or something, right? So something needs to be addressed there. So it gives you unbiased clarity over your day if you have multiple types of activities that you're doing every day.
And
Yeah.
funny thing, I'm realizing my cube is actually my family. Like, I change according to what my parents need, what my daughter needs, and yeah, I have different cube. I guess everyone has a cube. I guess.
So number one, Vito, we will meet in Porto, right? Will you bring the cube with you so we can play with it, right? So Nathan, you
I'll
and
bring the jug of water.
exactly. That's
Porto
it.
is
We're
a
gonna
free,
test it.
is a free environment. There's nothing on the schedule except for hanging out with Nathan and Maya and Davinda. If you're coming as well, are you coming?
Nope.
No,
So just the two of you
no,
guys.
but we'll make a cutout of him and just talk to him there. Made him from. We'll make him from
He,
the.
he, he might just be smart and just bring a cube with all the
Yeah.
blank sides.
Just
Exactly.
black.
This is what Nathan needs because he's gonna put on each side telephone, 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 so wherever.
Yeah, that's it. It would just be phone all the way down. Yeah.
Awesome. We also have a very active chat. Huh? Andrew Palmer and Andrew, thank you very much. So Andrew is saying try working with him when you are in a Neanderthal, Nathan. I don't know why. What
Oh, that's me. I mentioned
I
Neanderthals.
don't know what Andrew. I believe it's an internal thing. But then Andrew says here, love what you do, and love will come back for Davinder's comment. So that's really great. But Vito, I heard from the chat. Actually, I'm reading that you have some great book recommendations. Is that true?
Yes, I try to read a lot of books, and there's a few that are interesting, but depends on what. There's a lot of stuff that we can talk about in terms of books. So I'm not sure what Andrew's. Oh, I think he's talking about traction. Where is this book?
Traction. All right.
Somewhere. Traction it's called. And this is yeah, there it is. This is
Click guitar.
a book about um, running teams basically, and running like an organization, and very actionable. And the cool thing about it, it's based on this methodology that's called like the EOS. So it's the entrepreneurial operating system, right? And it comes from the place that says that we all need structure in order for us to thrive. And so it gives you those how to run the meetings properly with your team, with yourself as well, so that you can get the most out of them, and how to make sure that you're actually getting the business doing the stuff that it should be doing. And because I know that even in the agency, a lot of times what would happen to me is that I would be working on a project, and then the project would end or get too close to its fruition, and then you start freaking out. Okay, I need another client, and try looking for clients, and that creates the feast and famine model that happens in our industry very often, just because it's not real. The feast and famine thing is not something that happens in the industry. It's something that happens internally within us, because we don't have allocated time to doing the different activities throughout every day. So we just focus on something, and that thrives, and the other things die. It's like watering one plant and forgetting the other ones for a month, but you got to water all of them all the time. or get fake ones like this, right?
Exactly. And I was just about to say, you are such a good
Yes.
water plant.
No,
It's
that-
amazing.
I killed all my plants because I focus on the other things too much, right? So that's really one of the cool things about this particular book that I think is a good read for every
Yeah, I
scientist.
can really identify with that because early on, I really quickly identified that I am that person. I am the person who goes down a rabbit hole and doesn't come up for air. So I would just basically, it turns out that I can do one thing at a time. And that would be the website, say, for
Right.
example. And I finished it, and then suddenly I was out of I had no other clients coming forward. I had nothing to do. I was suddenly scrabbling around. And that happened 2 or 3 times. And I realized, boy, I need to address that. And so I learned to allocate a bit of the week. And the way that I just managed that, it was very simple. I just put into my Google Calendar on a regular weekly basis. I just called it particular things. So it would be, I don't know, it would be client outreach, or it
Right.
would be replying to emails, or it would be looking at Google Ads, or whatever it was that week. And I would put that in every week religiously, and I would force myself to stop doing the things that I would otherwise do, and just sit down and blindly get on. And that, I think that's my personality type. I just did it, and I would have failed over and over and over again if I didn't spot that fairly early on.
It's great.
Andrew is saying a massive change for me was rather than having a long meeting with my team. We have a 10-minute meeting every day. Sometimes it goes to an hour, but mostly it's a quick hello, how you are, and what is the work in progress, plus what we want to achieve this week. It's a game changer, for want of a better word. I agree totally. I mean, every meeting more than 15 minutes, I think it's losing the focus, and I think people are talking more about things that are not focus of the meeting. So I totally agree. Would you? I mean, if I think that the best length of meeting is how much you can stand. If you can stand 10 minutes, that's the maximum you can do it. So to move
So
further
it's
to our
interesting actually because sorry, Maya, just
no,
to
no,
interrupt you a bit there. It's interesting because talking to clients like I do, some of my clients, they really like to talk. They're very, very good at talking, every
talk to
bit as good as
Vito
I
about
am.
that.
And so we can do like a full hour and we haven't got into the meat and potatoes of what we should be talking about. I had to be very, very careful about slipping into that because it happened to me over and over again. The flip side of that is I believe that there is a benefit to that, in that if you can become the person who is approachable, you are friendly, and you are willing to clearly just shoot the breeze with no objective, and you're not constantly saying, right, can we get on with the if you can be that person, I feel that the thing that you can build up is worth its weight in gold in recurring projects. So they talk about their children and you learn their names, and you then talk about their children next time you're on the phone. And it's not because you want to be, you're not kind of contriving the situation. It's just, well, last time we spoke about your kids. How are they doing? Is everything all right now? And I think that kind of stuff is easy to push away because it's not very productive. But I think there's a hidden benefit on the other side, but it won't present itself immediately.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. I think that when it comes to nurturing those client relationships, a lot of times we would think that we're just there to build, or just fix the problem. But actually, if you manage to build like a long-lasting relationship with clients, that they know that they can count on you for years, then it's going to be a whole lot more than the 2K, 5K, 10K that you get per project, because the real profit happens on the back end. And that
Right.
happens only through nurturing this relationship. It's exactly like you're saying. But I also want to point out, from what Andrew is talking about here, this is what they call a stand-up meeting, exactly like you're saying, Maya, because you literally stand up, right? And this is another thing that happened, that I did it myself for years before I got into this before I educated myself a little bit more on this stuff. We're all creative people. That's the main reason why we get into this game. We're not there to initially. We're not there to build a multi-billion-dollar business, right? That's not the way to build websites for clients. That's not the way how you build a massive business straight away. So all we want to do is we want to create. That's the core of it. And so, and I came to this from the music side, and there's a lot of people that come from other forms of art into UX and into web design, because this is it is another form of art, at least in my opinion. Now, that being said, we are also the business owners. So we need to figure out, and even if you're a freelancer, you're still the business owner. And so we need to understand basic concepts. And I'm talking really basic concepts of project management. And this stand up concept comes from agile development. And there is an agile manifesto that everyone can read in about 10 to 15 minutes, if you just search for that. And that is a great resource to just give you a bit of frame of how the largest companies in the world are running development projects through those few basic principles, like the stand-up meetings that Andrew was talking about.
Very interesting. I have to just add to Nathan's story. WordPress agencies, they offer services and products, right? So just like a plumber comes to fix something in your house, or an electrician, he has to do something, right? But I didn't know I need to speak to him about my kids and everything. So thank you very much. This is very insightful meeting. Next time my electrician or a plumber comes, at first I will sit with him, take him for a golf course, then we talk, you know.
Okay.
I have a plumber, Maya, and I speak to him about his kids, and we waste his time. It's ridiculous.
And you
But
have serious
here's
issues
the
with
here's the
water in your
kicker.
house.
Whenever I phone him, now, he comes around the same day 100% of the time.
True. I have a post guy, a postman, who is like, I create a great relationship with him, and now sending post for me, it's not an issue. You know, he comes easily. Like, can you come today? Yes, I'll come for a coffee. So yeah, I think that 50% of any success is creating a solid relationship. You know, emotional, very honest, trustworthy. You know, compassion, full of compassion to understand people's needs. You know, even to guide them, because I think in WordPress, and WordPress professionals, they really need to guide their clients. It's not something that you can understand easily. It's not something you can watch on YouTube, like unscrew this screw and then put this here and montage, and that's it. You know, it's a really difficult thing. Before we move to the chat, I just have a question for you. Uh, you, all three of you, came up with the concept of the business that you have, right? So I wanted to understand, how did you form your offer or type of services? Because I think that's really hard, because you are tech savvy, you can go into many different angles of the business, and and so how did you decide that the mix you selected is the optimum for you? Are there any is there any tip for this, please? Thank you. Devinder, would you like to start first?
Sure. Okay. So pricing is hard. That's what we read online, right? So we all start with the lower figure and slowly move up as we gather more experience. Now, unless you have a service for masses with lower margin, I think always provide more than one option, preferably three plans, more options, and be smart with pricing, because that 199 is always cheaper than $200, and it still works, mind you. And one should be flexible with the price, and pricing should be according to the client's requirement. No two clients will have similar requirements, and no two clients will have similar pricing. And also, even if you're giving a similar kind of service, like I do a lot of coaching, so like my new coaching clients always pay higher prices as compared to the older one, because with older ones I have a repo and I know that they are not going to drink too much of my brain juice. So for me, the return of investment is all about brain juice, right? If you can save it and make more money, that's the thing. When I say brain juice, it's not just how much you're investing yourself in terms of creatively and energy wise, but also the time wise.
Nathan, what about you? I mean, you've been we've been working on a different projects, right, in different companies. So how did you
Yeah,
decide? that
For
WP Build?
me, well, in my freelance business, it honestly, it was just a story of repeated failure. It was the failure that finally led to the things that I was good at. In other words, I tried. Well, I entered the internet when it was possible to do everything. You could host clients' websites on your own hosting, and you could literally spin up. You could buy a box and put Linux on it and all of that. And I did all of that. And I would manage the billing all myself, and I would do all the emails, and I would do all the outreach. And essentially, I just figured out, going back to the first thing that we talked about, I figured out through failure what was what was suitable for me to do. So a good example of that is, I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that. I just finally decided this box that I've got in Paris with all of my clients' websites on it, it's killing me. It's a real headache. I have to update it. I'm hosting all these client websites, and it was a pretty good return, but it was troublesome and it really bothered me. So I got rid of that, and that was the way that I figured it out. I tried everything. Now, I think the landscape has changed now, and you've got people out there online who are offering tips and tricks and things that you can try. Some of it is gold, some of it I'm sure is a bit of snake oil, but at least there's people now who are showing you the way. That there's this service that you can use and this service and what have you. But I didn't have that, and so for me, it genuinely was. I tried absolutely everything that I heard of, and in the end, building WordPress websites, just building WordPress websites, was what I ended up doing. It's not a piece of gold, I'm afraid. I don't really have gold there, but that is the way it worked for me. I didn't read books. I tried everything, and what I ended up doing was just websites, because that's what stuck and that's what paid the bills.
I'm sure Vito will agree that without failure, you don't know actually whether something would work or not. When it comes to failure, I'm totally in. I don't think people should be afraid of it. It's actually just one of the exercise to understand and learn new things. So, Vito, how about you? How did you know that? I mean, the software that you have, the solution that you have is needed. It's required in the market, but someone has to have a courage to do that, right? So how did you find the courage to go for Atarim?
So with or let's start with the beginning of the business, and I look at what I'm doing right now as just another step in that career that started as a freelancer, really. um, um, Building websites for clients from the back of a van back in the day. That really happened just by chance. I built a few websites for myself and for my friends, and then some people started reaching out and they asked if I can do this for them, and I said sure, and I'm charging way too little, but that's how much I was charging at the time. And then when it was working, um, or when I made all the mistakes that led to the place that it was working, then I started scaling this up, just by bringing another person and and then another person and then another person. That's really how the agency grew organically. The decision to go into what was WP Feedback, now Adarim, was a very conscious decision, and I think that was the first time that I did something like that, in a very conscious way, because we built this for us initially, and it worked like magic, which like the collaboration aspect on the websites and all those kind of things. We just needed something to work for our clients, and when it worked, I I did exactly what I said at the beginning: audience message channel system, and I decided to target people that are me, other agency owners, other freelancers, that were in the WordPress space. And then I did actually a survey with them. That was the real beginning of it, before I did any change in my own business, because I couldn't just change the whole thing up. I had people relying on me for salaries and for their livelihood. So I took that very seriously, and I had to make an educated decision for the first time in my life, that I just didn't fall into something, right? So that was like, I did a proper survey, and we learned that it is a very common problem for people to collaborate and to gather content and all of those kind of things. And that's when we decided to bring this to market. Um, and um, I was looking for channels, and I was looking for people that can help me bring this to market. Nathan was very helpful in the initial times, as well as Davinder, when we were kind of bringing this into the very, very early stage. And so that really was the way that it happened. And even then, I was still doing projects, or that's not true. We stopped doing all the projects straight away, but we kept about 50 clients that we already had on retainer, and that was more than enough to sustain the business while the new business was starting to build. And then over time, we kind of like, all right, we're not showing our clients any love. So over time, they kind of reduced, because my focus, I was watering another plant that was growing, that the product itself, until now that there are no clients. And I even kind of handed over all of the remaining ones to Andrew, that is here, and he's doing the work for these guys as well now. So it took time. It took about a year and a half, 2 years, until it completely stopped, until I was 100% focused on what I'm doing right now. But I did go through the process of doing this with intention. And I think that because I did this with intention, it also allowed us to grow a lot faster than the organic way of waiting for things to happen, and let's see who is going to reach out to me this week and whatever. I was there shaking Nathan, let's do a live broadcast, let's do something, and let's Davinder, please add this, please add that, and that's these are the things that really helped things move, because I just didn't wait for things to happen. I tried to make them happen.
Luckily, you were part of the WordPress community. You see how everything is easy when you have friends in
Yes.
WordPress community, huh?
And
So
and that's another thing that goes back to what Davinder said initially. I wasn't part of the WordPress community when I got into this game. I was building in WordPress for 10 years before I realized there is a community. And we were just I was engaged in communities, but that were for my agency clients. So we were serving a lot of nonprofits and stuff like that. So I was going to nonprofit and charity related events here in the UK to get in front of them. But the first thing is that when we wanted to release the plugin, is I looked into the same thing for the charities. I went to events constantly. So now there's a product. Let's see what's coming. And it just happens that WordCamp London was coming up about a week before we launched. And so I said, oh, it's in town. Let's go see what's going on there. And that's when I met Paul Lacey, that introduced me to you, Nathan, that introduced me to Lee Jackson, that introduced me to this. And, the whole thing started spiraling. But really, the first time that I met you and you gave me the sticker, the WP Builds sticker, was my first time engaging with the WordPress community.
It's interesting because you go back right back to my initial point, which was do something that you're good at. And I think it's fair to say, Vito, that you are good at hustling.
Right.
You're really good at it. It's in your blood, right? You can walk up to, I remember watching you at WordCamp Europe and thinking, I couldn't do that. You would walk up to strangers and engage them and have them and talk with them and, deliver your pitch and then wander off and do the same process over and over again. And it was incredibly effective. And honestly, if I'd have been in charge of WP feedback, what a mess. What a mess. But that you played to your strengths, and your strengths are the things that you read the books and you understood the material and all of that. But the core strength there is your ability you're fearless, and you can talk about your stuff to complete strangers. Not many people can actually do that, and that puts you in a really good spot. So yeah, just to reiterate, I think you're going back to what I was saying at the beginning. You've played to your strengths, whether you knew that at the time or not.
I
In
just
fact,
wonder what will happen to all of you, like if Nathan and Vito would switch roles for a week. You know,
It's not good, Maya.
Both sides
Not
will burn
good.
down. No one would listen to the podcast, and all my employees would be with
Yeah,
would
yeah.
get a
Oh,
telephone
no,
call,
I'd
from Nate.
have just talked the whole time. Yeah, yeah.
And adding to Vito's start, the funny thing is, like, when Vito came into the scene, like, he came and like blasted everywhere. Like, he was everywhere within 2 months. Like, when I say everywhere, like every podcast, every channel you could possibly. So when Nathan says he's good at hustling, well, he's really good at hustling.
Yeah, but it's again, it was a focused effort, and it all
Yeah.
Yeah.
came down from audience message channel system.
and
I
and
made a
I
list.
still remember it culminated into, you at that time you started with WP feedback and you had that lifetime deal, remember? And everyone was like, that was gold. Like, that's how you position yourself, right? And I'm sure you made a lot of money. I'm not asking for figures and all that, but yeah, that's how it funneled to the lifetime deal of WP feedback at that time.
Yeah, and that's
Awesome.
another thing that we're talking about, not looking into what other people are doing or pricing per se. When for example, when we did that lifetime deal, it was something that everyone is doing $50
Yeah,
lifetime.
it was a $99. I remember it was way higher.
It was $500
Yeah.
because I said I don't want thousands of customers. We're just starting. I just want 200 people to pay $500 each and get 100K, build a business, and that's what we
Vito,
did.
you're stealing my next question, okay?
Oh, sorry.
You're totally stealing my next question, so you're not going there now. Before that, we still have 20 minutes for the stream on Twitter, but if we continue our communication, I really apologize to everyone who's listening on the Twitter. We will cut it, but then later on, I will add the link to the full recording if anyone's interested in listening. So let me move to another question, so which is, how an agency owner or freelancer thinking of opening an agency and starting to come up with some business plan, how to price their products and services, what is free and what's not free. Who wants to start first? Davinder, you
Nothing
want to
free.
start first?
Look, the thing is, a simple same brochure website can be a $1,500 and can be a $5,000. It's all about how you're selling and positioning yourself. So price tag depends on how you position. If you're expert in a niche, you can easily command a higher price. Now, for example, like, just giving a very broad example, like, if you are just specializing in WooCommerce website, you can always charge higher than compared to a web agency who's building all kinds of websites. So just focus on a niche and position yourself as an expert. And coming to that free part, well, nothing is free. Everything has a cost or price involved. So yeah, nothing is free. There's always a hidden devil there.
Nathan, how about you? How do you price
Yeah,
your
I think I
product?
would just basically echo what Davinder said, in that it really does come down to the way that you position yourself. And I think it would be folly to give away too much for free. I mean, there may be some things that you are willing to do for existing clients who have been with you for many years, and you see that there's some value in helping them out there, but it doesn't feel like a good fit to give anything away for free. Having said that, I'm gonna give you the perspective of somebody that I know. I won't tell you who they are, but they're going for a really different approach, which I find curious. And so they're getting rid of the whole value pricing thing, and they're trying their hand and succeeding, I feel, at offering a sort of DIY website build. And they're kind of offering almost like a one-day website service, where they get on the call and they just knock it out the park in a day. There's quite a lot of preamble beforehand and what have you. I never really tried that. Well, I did, and it didn't work for me in the slightest. And what I mean by that is nobody ever took me up on it, so I never even got to sort of try it out. But the reason I mention that is because I don't think there's one size fits all. We're constantly told that value pricing is the way to do it, and if you can do that, that's brilliant. But there are other options out there. There's the one-day website build option. There's doing things with clients options. Really, whatever fits, I think, is probably, going back to what I said at the beginning. If you're good at a particular thing, and you can persuade people that this site, which is going to take you 7 hours to build is worth $5,000. Well, why wouldn't you do that? But if, on the other hand, you don't seem to have the ability to do that, you don't have the personality type to push that over the line, go with what you can do. And there are many, many different options out there. And all the tools and page builders and things which make things easier, you can really explore setting up a different business and seeing what works for you and your clients.
This is amazing. You answered this question. You already started saying how you came to the price that actually worked for you to keep the business, and at the same time it gave the clients the relevant value. There are many entrepreneurs who are tech savvy, but then they're missing business skills. How did you know? Did somebody tell you to use this format, like take only 200 clients, you don't need more, and this will work for you? How did you know that?
That I knew because I've already been in business for. That's what I mean. Like that wasn't the beginning of the journey. That was already building on almost 10 years of being a freelancer and running an agency. So I already know how to do those things, right? So it was like it just made sense. Let's do the quick calculation, and this is what we need, and let's do that. And I thought that it was worth it, and I was right because people bought it and they enjoy it to this day. But when I first started, I made all of these mistakes, because you don't know how much you need to charge. And I was charging people literally $100 for a website. It was like in back in Israel, it's like it was about 400 shekels, right? So that was the 120, 500 shekels was the first website. Yeah, I'll do it for 500, no problem. But then it took me some time to kind of figure out that I need to raise prices. My first mistake going into the agency was that or I did raise prices over time, but instead of drastically raising my prices, I just ran out of capacity. So I decided to hire someone, right? Instead of just increasing prices first, and which meant that I was starting the hiring process or the expansion process with very slim margins, which is not a smart move to do because everything is very stressful when you try to do something like that. Um, then what I would suggest in retrospect, because now I can, it's very easy for me to say, looking back, what I would do. And I can also tell from a story from a friend of mine that came to me with the same question. He's videographer, or he does like motion graphics, right? After Effects and all these kind of stuff. Very creative work and very similar. It's project based, right? You build a video. Or an explainer video, 1 minute or something like that. Very, very similar to small business websites and so on. He asked me how much should I charge. I asked him, how much are you charging? He said, I'm doing it on a daily basis. I'm doing 200 a day. I said, all right, do 350. He said, why? Just do 350, you see. He asked for 350 and it worked. And so he came back to me and said, how did you know that I should be charging 350? I said, I didn't, but you trusted in me that you should be charging 350. So that's how you communicated this out. And then people trusted you that this is how much they should be paying you. So now raise it by 50, do 400 a day. And so basically, and that I learned after I started attending all kinds of agency related like events, and kind of learned there was a story by this guy that he made a quote for a project for a client. And then he heard that client went after 10 more agencies in the area and asked for quotes, right? And the quotes spanned between 2,000 to 37,000, right? For the same project. They all got a brief and they all quoted the same thing, 2,000 to 37,000, which signaled to me, or at least this is also what he said, it just kind of means that pricing is just an arbitrary number that you throw out there, and some people kind of just gonna go for it and some people are not. And so I kind of learned that it, to some degree, it is like that, especially in projects, because it's true that if you position yourself, you give yourself the confidence to ask for more, but you can already do it right now. You can just go out tomorrow and start asking for 5,000. If you truly believe that this is what you're going to be worth, then this is what people are going to pay you. And that is really the I think the entire art of it. If you believe in it, then people are going to pay for it. Now, to build that confidence, this is the journey that needs that's the hard part, in saying 5K and not flinching. And so with this, it would be a matter of, or what I would suggest, every time that you deliver a quote, just increase it by 20%. That's something that every person can swallow. I just increased it by a few hundreds more, a few hundreds more. Then you're gonna realize that by the end of the year, you're charging what you're worth and not what you think you're worth.
So basically, what I'm hearing is like, don't be afraid of increasing your prices, and find a helpful friend, as Davinder would say, who would actually check your idea and check your prices, right? Because this is what the WordPress community is for, to understand where you are with your idea. Because we're just going to move to Glenn's questions as well, which are here in the chat, where he's asking for instance, for those who have developed plugins and such, where do you get inspiration to find the hidden need, right? So in order to find the hidden need, you need to be heavily involved in a number of things and then understand
Community.
what's missing, right?
Yeah, community, people post their problems and plugins are basically solutions to those problems, right?
Yes.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So again, community. So going left, going right, backwards,
For,
forward, we
for
still
me,
have community.
for me, that would
Without
be just fix your own problems. That would be the biggest advice. Just find what's the problem in your life, in your business, in your product that you're trying to create. Fix it and charge for it.
Sure, and that's a great, really great tip among the tips that we have already given. Don't be afraid to ask people in community, because if you're creating something new, and if you're already at a stage and you already have a lot behind you, nobody's going to compete with you. It's just a matter of understanding what you are offering, whether it's to lose time on this or you are seriously losing time. So another thing is, Glenn, thank you very much for your question. He's asking any tips on finding new clients. So all three of you have been in this business of searching for a client, maybe in a different time. 2022 is kind of like tumbling constantly, going up and down. So how do you find clients in 2022? I know that you are going to address this question from different perspectives because of the different businesses that you have, but let's hear all of those. Nathan, how do you find clients?
Yeah, my approach is very much a regional sort of local approach, and it was at the beginning just to more or less knock on doors, do the sort of phoning at the beginning, and then as time transpired, I, like I've said earlier, I feel like I put a little bit of extra time in everywhere I went and spoke to people, and then I would ask them to recommend them to friends or relations or whatever it was, and it really did grow kind of organically. I attended some things which didn't work for me. I attended the typical sort of meetups, the breakfast dinners and all of that kind of stuff, and none of that really worked for me. It turns out that my personality doesn't really do the sort of, here's a stranger, I'm going to sell you a thing. So for me, it was all about getting the phone ringing because of the past work that I'd done. So the first website led to the second, and that then led to the third and the fourth, and then the third and the fourth led to the next 8. And it really did happen. I live in a very where I live in the UK is still very much word of mouth. The connections really, really, really matter. So that cuts both ways. If you can do well from that, that's great. But you can also destroy yourself almost immediately. And in fact, that has happened locally. There's a few people who've misstepped, and the sort of the grapevine quickly ruined their careers. And so I was careful not to do that. But it was very much an organic thing, asking people to recommend me if they thought that I'd been decent. And in many cases, I found out how they came my way. In many cases, I never really found out. They just said, oh, somebody mentioned you. And that was it. So it was word of mouth for me. And it's word of mouth every single time, more or less.
Davinder, how about you?
I think the best clients who will respect you, your time and expertise are, they always come from referrals, at least in my career so far. and and you can even charge them what you feel like, and you can easily, double your rates. And those principle, hey, double your rates, they only work on those kind of clients. If you're going to get those clients from Fiverr and other things, that's not going to work. And again, it all, now again, people will say, how would you get referrals, right? So it's all about starting somewhere. Like, even if you're new and you've created something, just go in the community and share. Someone will notice, because once you start sharing things you're doing, you will get so many pleasant surprises in terms of opportunities. And I've gone through those surprises and I love it. And it's all about getting into the community again. Then people will say, oh, it's a time consuming process, but see what you're doing when you're in the community. You're spending time, say 1 hour every day, say on a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group. You're basically investing in getting a good lead.
Right.
Vito, how about you?
There's two ways to go about this. One is referrals is always the best place to be. Word of mouth, that people are referring you because they heard that you're doing good work. But like Nathan is saying, that means that you gotta provide good service and be actually not only good at building, but have good communication skills, good being able to deliver on time and do all of those kind of things. Now, one thing that I think that our industry is not doing as efficiently as it can be is, we all agree straight up, throughout the entire industry, we all agree that word of mouth is the best marketing channel for all of us. But rarely do we actually invest into it. So we would learn how to do Facebook ads and Google ads and go to breakfast, drink champagne in the morning. Nathan, I've been there as well, with randos, uh, and then we do all of these kind of stuff, but we never invest in the thing that actually works for us, which is creating referrals. So with Adarim, we have this concept that we train people on the referral flywheel, and that means that you can actually accelerate, systematically accelerate the referral process for you. That if one client gets you one customer, then actually one client should get you 2 to 3 customers, with a few steps that you're doing to actually ask for it and reach out to them and proactively do the work, like you would go out to a meetup or like you would post on Facebook just with your existing clients. That's one thing. Then on the other, so you increase the amount of word of mouth referrals by asking for it, and then on the other hand, you decrease the time to referral by completing the project faster. Because if it takes you 2 months to complete a project and one customer is going to refer you another one customer, that means that you're pretty much looking at a 2.5 months until you're getting one customer, right? One extra customer. But if you reduce the time of project to 3 weeks and you optimize it to get three referrals from that one customer, that means that by the 2.5 months, you're already looking at 12 customers. And that is how you really can accelerate this, because 12 customers can bring in the 32 customers, and so on and so on. So that's how you kind of systemize a word of mouth instead of just trying to look elsewhere. Look as to where it works. Then I also want to connect to what Davinder is saying is about those Facebook groups and stuff like this. If you know your niche, if you have a niche, and you should, maybe local is a niche, Nathan. If I look for on Facebook, there's probably a group for your town.
There's
right?
lots. Yeah.
Yes. So you want to be the guy. So if you engage in that group and you become the guy or the gal, that does the websites, then they're just going to start coming to you from these groups. So whether it's a local environment or from an industry based or some kind of vertical, engage and become the person that does this, then people are going to come to you.
Another couple of curious things. One guy, local, not very local to me, but that I know, he did really well because he took over a local radio show just about tech, and he just became the tech guy for this area. And then he would always just sort of throw in what websites he was building currently and problems he'd face, and that really worked for him. And This one always worked for me. Bottle of wine, handwritten postcard when the project was finished.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
Well, we are ready, Nathan. I mean, we are already at the top of the hour. Actually, we went to the another. I don't know how many. I don't know if you guys have additional 10 minutes, because I would like to go through a couple of more questions, because this discussion is actually sparking so many discussions all over the place. So I don't know how we will collect all the cramps. But what I wanted to understand, another thing is like how to understand a how to understand a prospect client from a non-prospect client, or a client that you're going to lose time with. And when you're starting first as a freelancer, you want to get any job. You just want to do any project, but not any client is for you. How do you know you're actually working with the right client? Who wants to say? Davinder? Nathan, you want to start, please?
Well, I don't mind. I'll dip in first. Okay, this is going to sound ridiculous and parochial. I use my spidey sense. I have no idea how, but I think I can judge character pretty well. And I've never been proven wrong with clients. I invest the time at the beginning. I talk to them. I go off topic deliberately. I ask them all sorts of questions, which, give me an indication of what they're like. And I've always worked with people who've been very gracious, very kind, very thoughtful. And that is such a ridiculous answer. But, in the same way that we described earlier, that Vito is born with the skill to hustle. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet. I think I am a fairly decent judge of character, and that has worked very effectively for me. There's a few times when I've had a red flag immediately. I'm on the phone call, and 15 seconds in, I just know, just like, this is going to be fraught with problems. They're interrupting me all the time. They won't listen to the suggestion I just made, and so it's very easy to back out. And sorry, it's not a more technical answer filled with data and charts, but dare I say it, it's worked.
It's a very good answer. There is a Giphy of a client constantly talking to the designer what to do and standing behind him. And whenever I see this photo on LinkedIn, I always tag Vito, because I say, whenever I see somebody giving instructions to designers, I think of you, right?
Well, I've tried two things. Like, first, you can just add the entry barrier in a form of money. Like on our agency website, you can say this project starts from $2,500, and you are just weeding out so many people who will not qualify your thing. But I actually follow what Nathan follows. That is, I actually do 30-minute, free consultation with a prospect, which has given me enough green flags to just judge and have a conversation. Because when you talk face to face, even on a virtual medium, you can see how many red flags or green flags you've collected, and based on that, and now I think I've done more than 15 years of agents experience. Now that's enough to judge whether this person is going to eat my brain or help me increase my brain. So yeah.
I have similar processes. It's not so sort of I don't just go through a conversation. There's lots of questions, and there are green flags and red flags. Curiously, I decided a little while ago that the money question wasn't going to be the be all and end all. And because I found that a few people who came to me with a very modest budget then turned out to provide me with a lot of recurring revenue over the years. And so that taught me, just because it's not 5,000 right away, it could be 5,000 next year and the year after that. So I think there's a little bit of stepping around that one. If you put 5,000 and that is the condition that you set on it, sometimes that can be because they literally may not at this moment be able to commit to it, but you never know. It might be the very thing that you build them that enables them to give you the 5,000 next year and the year after that. So I think you need to be a little bit flexible with the pricing, and it can't always be the number one criteria. Yeah.
I like that. I think that it's very much the spidey sense is definitely in play when it comes to these things, and you can very much see the experience. We also had the process of like an hour consultation
Yep.
initially, and then we go through their business, we go through their kind of like goals, and then you try and figure out if they actually know what they're trying to do. A lot of times, the people that are gonna be the nightmare people are the ones that they just don't know what they want, and so and sometimes their expectations are just unrealistic. Like I had a guy that basically wanted to build Facebook for like 2 grand, right? So you kind of have to let them down easy or steer them over to Wix or something.
Sadly, he was called Mark Zuckerberg, and
Yeah. That's how I lost the deal. So that's one thing that really kind of come to mind. But that being said, I think this is a skill that is something you develop over time.
yeah,
So when I first started, or my first batch of clients, the first 20 clients had a lot more horrible people in them compared to the next 20 and the next 20 and the next 20, that we brought on board. And there's two reasons to it. One is because I didn't know how to point out those red flags, and the other thing is because I was hungry. And when you are in the survival mode, and you just take
yeah, yeah.
whatever you can, then you make a lot of these mistakes where you compromise on yourself to get the clients that you can right now. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that initially getting some bad clients is a good idea, really, because you learn what are your limits, but you got to be aware that this is coming. And at some point, once you're out of this survival mode thing, then you just need to let them go. And that is one of the best feelings that I've ever felt in my life, letting go of some of these clients, that were just sucking away all energy and all life. There's just kind of like everything was black around them. And letting them go really frees up your mind to the next steps, and refocuses you. So you got to know when to let these guys go. But it's gonna happen. It's part of the game, I think.
Listen, Vito, I'm so happy that I know you because you know what I want. And I will need a private session in this case because we need to discuss. I have many questions for you. Since we have
Great.
already like reached our limit, I'll have three very short questions for you for the end. First question is, what's your favorite newsletter? And that is, and we have the winner here, so I would assume that you would mention favorite newsletter. Okay, Vito, you first.
There's two. One is the WP Weekly, and the
Yeah.
other one is the WP Builds.
You suck up. That's brilliant. That's great.
These are
Love
the
Okay,
it.
two
Nathan.
best ones ever.
Okay, Nathan, what's
It's
your
like when
choice?
Okay, so forgive me. Now that Vito said that, that was obviously probably something along the lines that I was going to say as well. I In terms of newsletters, good grief, there's a one called the Repository, which if you're into WordPress is ever so good. And there's another one called WP Mail. I'm sticking to WordPress. There's a whole load of other ones that I would recommend, but they're nothing to do with this. So they're both really good. And also, we've got a new one called Tiny Press, which sends out just 3 links every single week. And it's Daniel Schutzsmith's newsletter, and it's tinypress.email, I believe, is the domain. And it's literally just 3 links with a little bit of analysis, and it's really nice as well. But obviously, there's Devinders, which I receive each week as well.
Okay, Davinder,
Okay, now should I
what's your
say?
favorite
Well,
newsletter, please?
it's the only one, the wpweekly.com. Well, that I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm actually subscribed to a lot of newsletter, but my
Yeah.
favorite one, besides obviously the WP Weekly, is sidebar.io, because it's similar to Tiny Press, but it sends you like 5 links every day. It's a daily email. So they send you 5 links every day for design development. Like, it's a wider space. So I love reading all those interesting articles. And there's another one from Josh Spector, which is called For the Interested. Like, it is for those people who are into the business of newsletter. Like, he gives you tips that you would never have ever imagined. Like, you could do those kind of experiments with your newsletter. And
Nice.
obviously there's Kim Doyle's F the Hustle. I just follow her so that I know what she's doing, so I can trouble her on the messenger. So yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay, so we have trouble on the phone, trouble on the messenger, and there is a trouble on email. I think we covered all aspects of how to reach a customer, right? Or how to lose the customer. Well, thank you very much. I think this was a very insightful meetup. First of all, I'm very happy that we discussed this business development of WordPress business in today, because now people, unless they knew you, because I just saw in the chat, Andrew Palmer just said that he met 2 or 3 people today who didn't know that WordPress community exists. So to broadcast it more, we exist. We might be able to help you, and we will surely give you a professional help. You've met our guests today, and if you have any questions, please do approach them. They're all 3 of them are on LinkedIn and on Twitter, as far as I know. I know that, but I'm not sure, Vito, if you're using Facebook for your private stuff or for a business. But I think that these 2 networks are really great chance to get in touch with them. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We were missing Mary Job, and Mary has to pay a drink next time we meet, because she sent an email. She had an emergency, so she
I saw
couldn't.
that. Yeah. Bless her.
Yeah, it's very sad, and we hope, Mary, everything went well. So I just hope to see you soon, and that the timings are going to be better. In the meantime, please join us for another GoDaddy Pro EMEA meetup in June. Before that, we will all meet, except for Davinder, in Porto.
Oh.
And yes,
On the
that's really,
boat.
yeah, and
Oh
yes,
yeah. Yeah.
it's gonna be fun, right? So
Yes.
before I actually close this session, I would really like to wish everyone a happy, healthy, and a very peaceful May wherever you are, and that we hope that economic times will be better, and that your business will strive together with you, and that you will find what you love and to do what you do best. So regards from all of us, and I see you next week.